planning functions, what the final selection criteria, what the planning functions are in the software, how easy is it to use, how quick will it be to develop, how well is it supported. Important also, what's the roadmap of the software? Well, I think we've seen today with the iPad and various other applications that that Palo, I think, speaks for itself on that front. So they implemented it. They had all their financials. They have all their financials in an Oracle Business Suite, and they managed the planning activity outside that general ledger. So, if you like, it was a separate planning environment where the budgets were prepared, the budget holders could have their input, and that is all done in Palo. And once that was finalized, or is finalized, it goes back into the general ledger, from which they've got their own in-house developed reporting tool, and reports come out from that. And they've also started doing the month-end reporting, automating that with the sort of templates we've seen earlier. Very much a high-level, top-down planning activity to general ledger level. The next stage in the process is to do it really at the budget holder level as well, but they haven't got that far yet. The model, 19 dimensions, 6 cubes. Of these cubes, there are 2 which are planning cubes, i.e. where they can tweak all the different variables to get them to work out the final results. You're familiar possibly with multidimensional modeling, but effectively it's all about context, giving a context to a particular value of $100, be it. And here in their model, they've got obviously a time dimension, they've got a description of workforce dimension, so existing employees, filled vacancies, open vacancies, so they're looking at what the recruitment demands are, obviously by group, by types of employee, by cost center, and then there are various measures on pay and costs and so on. Lots of scenarios, so be able to plan through lots of different scenarios, test things out, keep the history of your planning journey, if you like, and then reach the final version, which eventually goes back into the general ledger. So a way of working through the process. And then they've got fairly complicated months, or complicated looking months dimension, which is actually really only has year-to-dates and rolling 12s here. They wanted to see it very transparent. There's a much neater way of doing that, but that's what they wanted to do it that way for visibility purposes. So if you're looking, for example, the Chief Nursing Officer, you want to look at their pay award for 2012. You select that person, they're obviously part of the employee group of nursing. We're looking at their pay award for 2012. They're an existing employee. We're looking for the total year, and let's look at version 1 of the plan. You've got the data straight away. And that sort of instant querying, instant results was just not available on the relational tool. It was have to go over to someone on the relational team to write various queries and pull the data back. And, it might be days before they got that result. So pay awards, that's a simple calculation of how a pay award is calculated. Take the basic pay from the previous year and add a percent, whatever that might be. So then that becomes one of your what-if criteria. 5%, 7%, 3%, 0. That becomes part of your planning activity. What does that look like in Palo? Palo rules. There are lots of rules in Palo. Wonderful rule development tool in there. It looks pretty much like I've written it for the first time around. So it's not something you have to write SQL queries for. And there's one of the rule engines that's in the NHS model. So what have they got out of this? And I think the key things are accuracy and efficiency. And that's been manifested by giving them a lot more transparency and control over the whole process. It's by allowing them to do far more complex scenario testing and along the sort of lines I've described. And the whole process has improved enormously. It's much less wasteful and time consuming. So just quickly looking at the transparency and control aspect of it, with the relational tool, although finance is doing all the specification and is reading the map, if you like, the actual work has to be done by the IT team. As we've just seen, the sort of skills required are very technical. Anything to do with the design and build of the model, specified by finance, done by IT. The calculations, specified by finance, written by IT, tested by finance again. So there's an iterative process, and even the data loading in subsequent periods, weeks, months, whatever, mainly done by IT, checked by finance. And there's, when you're developing these sort of models, it's very unlikely you're going to get it right absolutely first time. And even if you do, it's going to change, as we've seen with other examples. Budgeting and planning is an evolving process. If it's not changing, your organisation's not changing either. So it has to, and that means therefore lots of rework between finance and IT all the way along, and wasteful, time-consuming, laborious. So the idea with Palo is you basically switch that. You must obviously have your IT colleagues alongside, because there's all the infrastructure and the security protocols and all the other things that have to be properly observed. But there's no need to burden them with model design of a planning model. You can do that in Excel, you can do it in Palo. And the same thing with design, the output design, you can experiment with it. So with this process, and again, also with the data loading and checking. And therefore, it really puts most of the burden on rework on the people who are going to be using the tool. And the rework is not just correcting something that's wrong, it's evolving the tool so that you stop having a sort of a fixed planning process and something that actually evolves and grows with the organisation. So, and the head of finance systems was delighted. Basically, he had a lot of people applied to this. It was a real headache. It was slightly beyond his job description in the sense that his job was really to make sure all the infrastructure and security worked, and then he was being asked to do all this stuff, which was, slightly beyond, in terms of the finance aspect, was not a core competence. So puts finance back in the driving seat, and IT are there to help and sort out. So, and I think that's an important benefit for them. The scenario testing, again, is very much lots of variables involved. It's a journey. You're testing things out, and if you've got a flexible tool, you can tweak and fine-tune and move things around and look at the results and say, right, well, what if we change that? What if we change the other? So, so these are some of the variables that you might be tweaking on an HR model. And we see really scenario testing as is an adventure, and it can be very painful or pretty hard work with your relational model, or something that really you can just speed up and be much, much more efficient if you've got the right tools. And in terms of the process improvement, this is really, I can't do better than the slide that Matthias showed earlier. And this absolutely describes how they did it. They created a master spreadsheet, they sent it out to the 150 budget holders. It was duplicated, and then emailed out. Then they made sure that everything would be received, they were checked. There was a lot of rework going on in terms of the budgets. Once that had all been finalised and pushed in, then it had to be consolidated, reporting to the board, and the process all starts over again. So by using Palo, they were able to just remove a lot of that headache by having this central tool that everybody feeds into, and they've saved an awful lot of time and errors as well in that process. So after Palo, basically, it's really ticked all the boxes for them. And the next, they're looking, there's a roadmap to the future. They want to do bottom-up planning, as I mentioned. They want to model balance sheet and cash flow. More users are knocking on the door saying they want access to the tool, and drill through to the ledger area as well. So effectively, it is helping them balance this very difficult task of budgeting in this very tough environment. And I think they feel they're hopefully keeping both patients and staff out of the stress points of the process and continuing to deliver good patient care. Good, so thank you very much.